Spying is fun as hell!
Spying is fun as hell.
I have to leave you now. No hard feelings. We all have our little faults. Mine's in California.
Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, taking issue with City of Crime from Detective Comics. Bruce Wayne was at a party where he met a socially precocious teenager. He used some harsh language about her behavior and has felt guilty about it ever since she wound up dead. When another teen, Cassie Wells, is reported missing, Bats vows to her grieving mother to find the lost daughter, possibly caught up in a criminal ring of adopting newborns and killing their biological mothers, and may or may not be with Mr. Freeze. The trail leads back to the Penguin, who's on the wrong side of his mysterious co-conspirators who blow up his club with him still in the building. "804's cover sees a bunch of people frozen upside down above Mr. Freeze, bearing flowers in a triumphant stance, alongside a priest and someone in a heavy winter coat, their face hidden by the hood. I gotta tell you, advertising for Valentine's Day is getting weirder and weirder. You might recall from last issue that Teresa Cushing, one of the people likely involved in the baby ring, realized the guy who came home and looked like her husband wasn't, and shot her before Robin's eyes while he was watching their home. Though unable to save her, he crashes through the window to stop Eric from shooting the infant Nathan. Granted, this causes glass shards to rain down, but we don't see any harm the kid, so this is one of those realistically unlikely scenarios I'm okay with, especially with how bleakly the story started. The killer throws his knife, but Rob deftly catches it before it could cause him or the infant any harm. "Take my advice, mister. You ain't getting near this kid." That's not really advice. Advice is more of a suggestion, whereas what you said was a declarative statement that makes suppositions about your opponent's intent versus outcome of action. Tremble before the Angry Spork's nitpickery! But perhaps it was that confusing quip that causes the assailant to claw at his face and dive out the broken window. Guess he really took that personally. Elsewhere, Bats is watching the aftermath of the iceberg explosion. With apparent mastermind Penguin gone, so are numerous answers to this case. He's not surprised. He knows his city well. She is vain, a tease. She smiles coyly in the dark. She does not like answers. Answers would only kill the mystery, the intrigue, the romance. Batman keeps working up the nerve to break up with her and start over with a new city. And Gotham, of course, is a city where romance oozes like a stuck pig. Can you believe the tourism board rejected putting that on the city's welcome signs? Bruce reflects on the personal business mentioned last issue, attending Hattie McNeil's funeral, as did many Gotham elites. He introduced himself to her father Andrew, whom, according to the first chapter, Hattie had only seen sparsely in the last 7 years of her life. Wayne wants to start a foundation in the girl's name, but Pappy is dismissive, not knowing what it'd be for, and tries to leave with his clearly heartbroken second wife for a trip they're taking next morning. Our hero stops him for a moment to tell Andrew how much his daughter loved him, and out of irritation, the guy asks if his dead 14-year-old child, who is again dead, was really that good. Like in bed. Bruce reminded himself to be a gentleman when he arrived, but as he clenches his fist at this remark, he wished that letting loose and decking the guy would make him feel better.
"I will punch you again and again and again and again."
Hot take, Bruce was right not to slug the guy, because he should have used this. Has anyone else been experiencing brief moments of cherry flavoring recently, or is that just me? Considering all the other depravity in this story, uncaring dad assuming his dead daughter was overly promiscuous with a 25 to 50 male demographic shouldn't be all that surprising. Still...
Well, that's sicker than usual.
Bruce can feel some new element in the city, something seen in the faces of the rich people at the service. Fear, greed, and perhaps more disturbingly, excitement. They heard a new rumor about the next Half-Life game being released next fall. Robin arrives incensed. How Eric Cushing killed his wife, attempted infanticide, then bounced out the window high above the streets, yet no body was found, not even a trace. Bats' only reply is that Mr. Freeze has taken a girl matching the description of Cassie Wells and insists they stay the course on their investigation regardless of the what-ifs. The aforementioned Freeze has taken a priest to a frigid meat locker, which he talks about like it's a house about to be renovated, and introduces him to someone he calls Nora, huddled in the corner in a coat. The Padre can tell this is a kid, a pregnant one at that, and Victor just shrugs it off as, "Hey, we're in love, that's why we need to be married real quick." The man of the cloth tries another tactic, saying he'll go get some witnesses for the event, but Vic's already taken care of that, with the workers of the meat plant hanging frozen upside down. Turns out their manager was wrong. Practicing boxing techniques on cow slabs like Rocky Balboa was, in fact, not the worst thing to happen on the job. Surgeon Ivers is at the Wells apartment, telling Marlene that making a spectacle on TV isn't going to help find Cassie any faster, which his partner Detective Lynch tries to put a less ornery spin on, to no avail. Ivers then suggests Cassie's disappearance was actually their fault, asking if her husband is a drinker. She doesn't like that very well at all, promising to never stop talking until she gets her daughter back, and throws the cops out. Lynch thinks his partner was out of line, gut instinct or no, but Ivers just threatens to have him transferred to Bloodhaven and tells him to get the car. We cut to a bird flying in the rain, narration noting how the dove is a universal sign of peace, love, and good luck, that its appearance on your wedding day assures happiness and prosperity. "This is not a dove. It's a pigeon. This is Gotham, after all." Which kind of makes these captions talking about doves seem like a pointless misdirect, huh? This happens to be a messenger pigeon, which, spoilers thanks to narration, is too delayed by the rain to be of help to its sender. It lands at a window, is picked up, and carried to Arnold Wesker, the ventriloquist, and his puppet Scarface, in an apartment filled with people who are either silent or have duct tape over their mouths, but either way are spoken for by Wesker, via his dummy. This is why no one wants to go to his watch parties. That, and he only ever plays his Big Bang Theory DVDs. If you look carefully, the bubbles of his guests' dialogue are slightly off in their shape, not strictly round like everyone else's. It's a nice touch to get across that, tales notwithstanding, they're not actually talking. The bird was sent by the Penguin shortly before the big kaboom, and after Scarface takes way too much joy in killing the bird, the message it carried says Mr. Freeze has potentially compromised their whole operation. At Arkham Asylum, Batman is with Dr. Jeremiah Arkham in the office of David Lovely, now deceased, seemingly by his own hand. He apparently freed Freeze, with whom he'd been working on total regression and reconstruction of his psyche, to essentially make him a clean slate and build him up like new, to work through his psychosis stemming from the loss of his wife Nora. While drastic and lengthy, the process was sound. However, it does leave the patient in a vulnerable state, open to further regression or suggestion, and in Freeze's case, perhaps make him more psychotic than ever. Then why did you consider it a sound process?
Are you a real doctor or a doctor like Dr. Pepper's a doctor?
This is being watched through a door window by, I assume, some inmates, given the snickering, and one of them feeds a length of paper, maybe cloth, under the door. Batman picks it up, reading what he views as a warning, the word love repeated over and over.
This 1930s stock ticker says we need to invest in love, and lots of it.
Narration recites wedding vows as Freeze looks at gowns for his bride, when the shop he's in gets firebombed. Looks like Say Yes to the Dress just entered sweeps week. That doesn't stop him as intended, and he ices one of the assailants, only to be met with a group right out of a James Cagney marathon, Tommy guns and all. He fights back, but his freeze gun seems to run out of power or something, and he gets overwhelmed, until the rest of the gunmen are taken out by some well-aimed batarangs. Victor tries to run for it, since he's already running late, but Bat stops him, demanding to know where he's taken the girl. This little chat is interrupted by a sniper's bullet, busting the protective dome of Freeze's suit, with Batman only able to batarang the shooter after the hit, and causing the guy to fall off the roof, and he's in no rush to try and swing to save him either. With Victor having maybe minutes to live, the gang of masked enemies close in, but at least now Bats has someone he feels good about hitting. I contend he could still feel personally good about punching Andrew McNeil in the face, since he was such a complete nozzle. Sure, the tabloids would have had a field day with Bruce Wayne starting a funeral brawl, not to mention what McNeil would spread since he already assumed some relationship between him and his daughter, so maybe Bruce wouldn't have felt very good for very long. Issue 805's cover has Bats contending with his attackers in the trees. Since we can see him up there, I guess he's not that good at it. Sorry, Gotham Girl, your joke is invalid. The masked man is screaming. Not the screaming you might expect of a man in an Armani suit leaping off an 8-story building, but the screaming you might expect of an Apache warrior rushing into battle, or a shirtless football fanatic in a blizzard.
Packers won the Super Bowl! Packers!
On a 2-page spread, Batman is surrounded by the strange enemies, not concerned with who they are, and his feelings of guilt alleviated some because they can take a punch. The downside is that no matter how many he takes down, they remain relentless and lacking in fear of him. He leads them away from Mr. Freeze, who hobbles away to his captive, and into a nearby park, where they navigate the tree branches better than expected, suggesting they're trained and organized. He still takes them down, save one, so he can get some answers. The chicken will talk.
What's the matter, Colonel Sanders? Chicken?
Featherface only responds with, "The body has no mouth, to talk is death," and when his mask is taken off, his face appears to have been molded to the disguise. When Popeyes didn't hire him as their new mascot, he sadly turned to crime. When asked what the body is, he says death, as the rain starts turning him to mush, cackling until he's completely gone. At City Hall, the mayor, who's at first called Hall but is later referred to as McGreevy, whoopsie, is admiring news footage of himself at a press conference about Cassie Wells. He bloviates, subtly passing the buck to the commissioner, generally puts on a good show, like how in a previous issue he'd called for Cassie's captors to release her, and demanded a law that would add 10 years to crimes against expectant mothers. His main concern is getting reelected, setting up a photo op with Cassie's mom, but his assistant Norman plants ideas in his head that Mama Wells is an unknown, potentially involved in the disappearance, which would make him look bad. The mayor seems to take this seriously. He does have enemies after all, but Norman says that whatever happens, they can spin it in their favor, and for now, the mayor should tone down his performances while Norman calls some friends. "We're doing a D&D campaign tonight. You in?" Ivers and Lynch are talking to Cassie's ex-boyfriend, Marcus Rivera, who insists they broke up a month back, and if he knew where she was, he'd say so, if only so her mom would stop calling him. He's not convinced the unborn child is his, even claiming to have offered to have it taken care of. And I'd like to think he means diapers, food, daycare, but let's be honest, that ain't what he means. But Ivers loses his temper, kicking Marcus and his motorbike over, warning him to give some useful information before the lad ends up at the top of the sergeant's suspect list, even over the distraught mother. Sometime later, Lynch calls out this behavior, mistreating witnesses, ignoring the baby ring, borderline influencing Marcus to lie, just overall mishandling the case. He'll humor the idea that pressure to close the case is getting to Ivers, and hopefully nothing else, but says Frank should retire.
You little diaper-wearing punk!
Hey, I told you that in confidence! Elliot doesn't care about the sergeant's many closed cases. He needs to hang up the badge. As he exits the car, enters his home, and greets his family, Ivers makes a call to someone about a big problem.
I think it's a rash, but it's usually less red in the morning. Don't know why it's shaped like the Mona Lisa, but...
Batman has met up with Robin, who relays that most of the adoptive parents connected to the ring are on vacation, and those in town aren't talking, not even in private, about anything. Bats tells him that Cobblepot, Freeze, and Wesker are all working for some new entity, knowingly or not. Don't know how he tied in Wesker since he hasn't met with him, and we haven't seen him connect those specific dots. Probably safe to assume Bubblegum Charlie told him before he thawed to death. He hands Tim a vial of the gunk his attackers were made of to take to the lab, while he looks for Freeze. In a brand new ice cage inside the meat plant, the priest fails to keep a match lit, and remarks that the thus far silent girl with him might help, and how warm she seems to be, asking for forgiveness, when their jailer returns, shedding his suit and dropping the temperature even further, with no idea how Nora is handling the heat. You know, Padre, as someone who spent several years working in a grocer's freezer, you could try rubbing your hands together to create friction, then put them in your armpits. Sure, I usually had gloves on, but they'd end up absorbing the moisture from the melted ice, and eventually they'd just tear up within a few weeks. I thought maybe there was a spelling error with temperature spelled without an E, and a U with an umlaut, and control spelt with a K. But maybe the artists were just having fun with a grim scene. Speaking of, at the Lynch household, the family says their goodnights, and a moment later, a shrill cry of terror rings out. Take the hint! Your kid doesn't like Game of Thrones as a bedtime story! At his home, Norman is on the phone, warning someone of what these people they're involved with are capable of. They all need to keep their mouths shut, lest they wind up like the Cushings, and in the end, they'll all be filthy rich. He's pulled away by his wife Kate, who's been a changed woman since she gave up her pill addiction. Overnight, she dropped weight, stopped nagging, cooked, cleaned, looked sexier than ever, and in the bedroom, ... Remember that for later. It's a little odd how she suddenly grew half a foot, but Norman normally distracts from that detail by having a martini and going back to sleep. Early in the morning, Frank Ivers is driving to the station with Lynch, trying to rationalize his extreme tactics by opining on the reality of how things work. Despite his ideals, how he's got to fall in line, that the money makes up for a lot. Then Elliot says he's not a problem anymore. He's the solution. Ivers makes a grim realization of what his partner is, what happened to the Lynches, and is told to be quiet as they continue their commute. Back at the freezer, the mystery girl finally speaks, encouraging the priest to do something, but he snipes back through chattering teeth that they're going to die, even taking a jab at her getting a coat, but apologizes and asks forgiveness when reminded of the baby. So he does what she told him to do, managing to get a match lit and burning his vestments. This interrupts Freeze from busying himself with some diamonds, and when he investigates, the father starts swinging his blazing shirt at him. Vic must have fixed his weapon because he freezes the cleric, then checks on his love. The girl responds that he doesn't really care about her, making him beg to know what he can do to prove his affection. So she hugs him. "Don't let go, my love!" Figures, the priest sacrifices himself 5 seconds before she goes full Stockholm Syndrome. But hey, Christians are told to expect suffering and be forgiving. This increases the doctor's body temperature to the point of incapacitation, and the girl starts crying as Batman arrives. Her face finally shown, she says her name is Michelle Blake. Not who the Dark Knight was thinking, perhaps hoping it was, but he'll still ensure she gets home. At a crime scene elsewhere in Gotham, Ivers knows his partner was killed and replaced with an evil duplicate, but wonders when he got so tall, broad-shouldered, and friendly with a couple other cops. It goes to show how short-sighted and dismissive he was of the real Elliot, not really knowing the guy at all, and wondering how precise this replacement really is, unable to correctly recall the OG Lynch. They enter an apartment building where the fake has told Ivers they've taken care of everything. They pass police tape, up the stairs, and enter a bedroom with 2 bodies. One is Marcus with a boomstick between his choppers, and beside him a pregnant girl with a bloody knife nearby, ID'd as Cassie Wells. Man, Bats is going to have to punch a lot of street punks to work through his guilt now. 806's cover is Batman in the rain, leaning forward slightly. Don't think you're going to find your contact lens that way, but you do you, I guess. We get Norman Steiner's POV as a man in front of him lights a cigarette, saying he and the mayor were selected to run Gotham, with the body as silent partners. They value privacy, not anticipating the kind of fervor brought on by the Wells case, when Norm's wife Kate is seen in silhouette behind him. The stranger claims to have had a talk with her, much to her improvement. No more messing with booze, drugs, or pool boys. She's also promised to stop forcing you to watch Sex in the City. She admitted to being spoiled, the stranger suggesting she'd be dead in a ditch if not for Norman, but was assured of her husband's forgiveness, and the body is forgiving as well, having great faith in Norman. You go and put on that dramatic one-man show about not getting that Xbox for your 14th birthday. I'm sure the story of a pampered kid not getting a game console when he has so much other stuff at his disposal will really resonate with the common people. This is a memory that Norman is pulled from while at a party, when someone notes how good Kate looks. Norm's a bit distracted, wondering who else in attendance may be similarly improved, and the other guy goes on about the waterfront project, the mayor's campaign fund. But the assistant really just wants to go back to drowning himself in alcohol because of all the scary things he's come to know since associating with the man in the dark. We go to the Batcopter, hovering over a boat owned by the ventriloquist. Not even the Joker is a match for his sheer ruthlessness. The clown is too smart to try horning in on Jeff Dunham's territory. So he came prepared for the worst. But the men with guns aren't firing.
I mean, it's not like I want to be shot at, but you get used to something happening so often when you arrive, you really start to expect it, and when it doesn't happen, you can't help but feel just a little disappointed. Emotions are complicated is what I'm saying.
Just below deck are several dead bodies, and the ventriloquist with a knife in his ear, clinging to life as he continues speaking as Scarface, because Albert Wesker is part of the body's operations as well. That's either a really weird typo or an even weirder non sequitur about Arnold's long-lost brother or something. But more than likely, yeah, a typo. Robin gladly goes to call Harbor Patrol to get away from the creepy puppet operated by the dying man, as Batman tries to get answers out of him. All the confused puppet mentions is that the Glutty Gastards live near the park, though not specifying which one before they start losing Wesker. Even with the patrol on the way, there's more bad news. Tim mentions that Cassie's body was found. Meanwhile, at GCPD, Sergeant Ivers watches in morbid astonishment as cops he's known for 2 decades chatted up with his partner's double, even though they never said 2 words to the real Elliot Lynch. He knows that if they were willing to kill Lynch's son, they'll kill Frank no problem, and wonders if the whole city's been replaced, with him as the only person left, alone.
First I missed out on the Beanie Baby craze, and now this!
Taking Ivers to the Wells apartment, fake Lynch puts on his best creepy Will Ferrell smile as he tells them they found their daughter's body, which of course devastates Marlene before they say anything. Meanwhile, Bats checks the bodies of Marcus and Cassie in the morgue, knowing that, with the case closed, the story will fade from the news and be forgotten. Then the girl's corpse springs up with a loaded gun and tries shooting him, Bats narrowly avoiding the shot. She could easily have done it. For his stupidity, he should have let her.
Stupid, stupid Batman. Always assume corpses will come back to life and fire on you. That's literally your daily affirmation.
It does manage to stab his arm with a scalpel, but he's lost all sympathy for this animated dirt made to resemble a person, and when he hears ticking, he punches through it to grab the explosive and disarm it, which looks pretty frickin' awesome. It's implied he anticipated this attack, narration citing how they made her too perfect, and pointy ears is a loose end, which is why he then hears footsteps closing in on him. Back at the Wellses, Ivers offers to take Marlene to see her daughter, urging the weeping mother to accept her kid is gone, but she just holds her son, saying she knows the body isn't Cassie. Lynch takes a call, telling the other end that he'll deal with it, and announces they have a problem.
Who put chia seeds in my coffee? Now I've got shrubbery growing on my butt cheeks.
Batman is on his way there, refusing to be stopped, no matter how many masked dirt soldiers stand in his way. Fake Lynch pulls his gun, spinning a story about how losing her daughter and unborn grandchild was too much for Marlene, so she decided to send the whole family off to see Cassie in a better place, with a baggie of cyanide he just happens to be holding.
The misery is so thick in this place, I could spread it on toast.
I'm more partial to I can't believe it's not sadness. He threatens Frank to find something for them to drink it with, and he's scared enough to follow through, despite the mom's pleas for help. Bats is 50 yards away when he's fired upon by a sniper trying to get a bead on him, and the imposter demands the family start drinking the poison. Frank finally works up the nerve to pull his sidearm on the thing that killed his real partner, and gets gut shot for it. The fake's disappointment that this guy wasn't as tough as he had heard is short-lived, as 2 of 3 batarangs crash through the window into its back, freeing his gun so Marlene can bust a cap in its topsoil. Bats has been boxed in by additional shooters about to flank him, almost like the city designed this spot to end him here and now. He sent a signal for the Batcopter that'll arrive in 3 minutes, provided he lives that long, as he's now surrounded by what look like more than 100 armed enemies, moving in slowly, perhaps out of fear and or respect.
How reassuring.
He then hears a chopper approach. 3, actually, which proceed to mow down the dirt army with Gatling guns. One is operated by the Penguin, with Miss Jessica's assistance, and save for her bandaged head, neither of them seem worse for wear after that explosion a couple issues back.
Well, sir, I won't bore you with the details of our miraculous escape.
Despite the distance between them and 3 sets of helicopter blades actively spinning, Ozzy and Batman are able to talk at normal indoor volume and hear each other just fine, as the gangster says he doesn't know anything about Cassie Wells and that those things are so rampant, he goes to extensive measures to verify his people's authenticity.
You think Gotham is a safe place? Not anymore! Not anymore!
Wait.
Someone thought Gotham was a safe place?
As for who this new force in the city is, Cobblepot only tells him to check near the park in Crown Point for a man who smiles too much. Well, now we know where they're filming Smile 3, Revenge of the Tooth Whitener. He flies off, and the issue ends on the rain finally stopping, dawn arriving, as if the old Gotham was washed away and a new one is in its place, with this new evil's message loud and clear to our hero. They can be anywhere and anyone. No one is beyond their reach, and this is no longer a place for Batman. Frankly, that could have been an email. The mystery of exploited teenagers and minions made of dirt is gradually coming to light, but Bats still has very little to go on. Tune in next week to see how his biggest lead yet pans out. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.